If you've been on the internet for any number of years, you've heard the age-old advice: hire a team, build a team, hire more people, and then hire some more. And if you are like, I don't know if that advice works for me, this episode is for you. I have the amazing Maggie Patterson coming on the show today to talk about her new book, Staying Solo, as well as, how you can do that yourself. But first, a word from our sponsor. Riverside is the all-in-one podcast recording and editing tool that I use for this right here show. I use it to edit not only the audio and the video, it is like chef's kiss magical, making the entire process so easy. Plus, I love their magic AI clips. Their little AI robot in the background pulls out the most impactful moments of the episodes without me having to comb through and do it myself, resizes them for social media. So those vertical videos you see on TikTok and Reels, those all come from Magic AI inside of Riverside. It's literally one click. It spits out 10 clips. I pick the best one and away I go. Saves me so much time. If you want to get on the Riverside train, check it out today. The link's in the show notes, and make sure to use my code DREA, D-R-E-A, at checkout to get 15% off your membership. Welcome to episode number 359 of the Mindful Marketing Podcast. I'm so excited to have y'all here today. And Maggie, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Yeah, well, thank you for keep inviting me back. I appreciate it.
Honestly, this is 100% selfish because I just love your brain and I just want to pick your brain just publicly for everyone else to hear as well. So I'm excited about that.
Take away.
But one of the things that I really admire about you is you have really strong stance and a really strong opinion about some of the things that are really the antithesis of what the big bro-y online businessy people say. And for years, there's this common advice of to scale, you have to build a team. So let's start with this big question. What's the deal with staying solo?
Well, the deal is, I noticed this pattern. I work with service providers, some of which are micro agency owners, and then some of which are true, done for you solo service providers. And early on, when I started working with this group, I just assumed, like I had scaled into a micro agency, that everyone wanted to do that. But I kept having my clients come to me and say, Maggie, I don't want a team. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, oh, this is a thing. And they felt really awkward about it. They felt bad. And a lot of the messages they were getting kind of in that bigger business ecosystem was like, they were playing small, they were capping their growth, they're limiting their potential, all the mindset things, and like, you're not going for it. And I have spent a lot of time with my clients over the years, reassuring them, talking about like, hey, you don't have to accept that your income is going to be capped just because you don't have a team. Like, how can we find a way to make this model work for you and optimize it? Because leadership is not for everyone. The risk and reward of having a team is not for everyone. And I think we've seen that over the last 3-4 years as we've watched a lot of people kind of walk back their teams. And not that that's a bad thing. We've also seen a lot of big businesses kind of what they call descale. They were not selling what they used to sell, which is fine. But the conversation has changed a lot in the last few years. And I want it to be like, hey, you know what? There still is a valid option here. You don't have to grow continuously. You don't have to keep chasing. You can build a business that actually supports the kind of life you want, and not in this, like, I'm going to be sipping pina coladas on the beach kind of way. Like, it's always like, it's like not freedom because I have a private jet. It's freedom because I can take my loved one to an appointment.
Yeah.
Really practical day-to-day things where you have the flexibility and like the freedom that's not about this, artifice, this big fake image around you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is the thing, right? It's the option to be able to decide to do this. And I feel like, especially when people are trying to sell you something, they say, this is the one true path and there's no other options. And so you kind of feel like that. Because you buy into the hype, right? And so I love that we're talking about this alternative method of doing things, because there is another option. And I know for me personally too, like I loved having a team. It really support me in that season of my life. I loved having my agency. And then I did it. And then I sold it. And then now it's just me and my assistant, Jemmy. And this is my season of life now. And I love this too. And I feel like you can do both. You can have both. You can create a business that kind of fits with your life. And I love that that's kind of where you are. Can I ask though about your business specifically? Because you have a team too. So how do
I
you
do.
balance okay. So
Yeah.
talk to me about like your team, and then how do you work with your team, but also, preach the good word of staying solo?
Well, it's a really good question. And I mean, it is something like one of my friends were initially pushing me to write the book because I'd been talking about staying solo on my podcast, and then eventually I'd rebranded my podcast. And I was like, no, I can't do this. Like, I'm not solo. And they were like, Maggie, the majority of your clients are solo, and you have years of experience having been solo. Like, yes, I've had it in a micro agency for the last 9 years, but the 11 years before that, I was on my own. And I'm also going through the process of like, I run 2 businesses. So eventually, like, will my agency retire? Yes. And will I be truly solo? No, because I don't want to fire my sister, but who works for me full time. But, we still run like a really scrappy little solo business in a lot of ways. So try not to add a lot of layers of complication. So I always say I have the scrappy heart of a solo person in my, that's the kind of way I run things. I've never been like, let's have a big team. I don't like layers of complexity. I started on that path when I started growing my agency, and I was so much happier like by reducing the team and having things be really, really slim. So for me, while I am not solo, I am in my heart.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the energy that you bring into the work that you do, is this like scrappiness to it, right? And I do feel like especially as small business owners, we kind of have to have that energy. Like we don't have the like endless amounts of funding that some of these like larger,
Yeah.
companies have. And so like to be able to sustain our businesses, we do have to like think strategically and be really smart about how we use all of our funds, including, paying our team and how that works out. So I love that you have that. So you basically wrote the book on staying solo. So what are some of the things, the common myths that you break down in the book about like staying solo?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is a lot of people have this hang up. They're not a real business if they're this
Mm,
team of one, or they're just like you and your assistant, right? People get really stuck on this. And the reality is that the majority of businesses in the US and in the Western world, all the statistics point to are one person businesses.
yeah.
You
Wow.
know, like we need to stop having the conversation around entrepreneurship, be really focused on scale, on rapid growth, on startups, on like the culture of entrepreneurship is very much this cultural celebration of being big when the reality of entrepreneurship is solo. So there's this
Mm,
real thing. And the second I point that out to people, they go, and then the second thing is that especially for people who've been operating in the kind of freelance online business world, they have a really inflated idea of what success looks like.
mm,
In the US, the number I share in the book is the average one person business is making $43,000 a year. But meanwhile, in online business world, 100K is like a joke. Oh, you're
yeah.
only making
Six
six
figures.
figures, right? Like, and then it was 7 figures and 8 figures and all the figures. And the reality is most people are creating these roles for themselves to have the freedom and flexibility and all the things that were promised. But ultimately, the goal isn't to make more money. The goal is to get the time freedom and everything else. And there's a lot of data I bring into kind of the front part of the book to set up all my argument. And there's an entire study of by state in the US of, hey, you know what? Why do people start their businesses? Money was very low on the list.
Mm,
And I think we start off with one thing and then it morphs over time and we start to feel bad about ourselves. We start to really see like, oh, I'm not earning enough. I'm not good enough. I should be hiring. I'm not legitimate. I'm a joke. And the reality is out in the non-entrepreneurial online business world, this is the way business is. So why don't we just like drop all this crap, cut the bullshit out, and like actually focus on what our businesses need for us to find them to be simple and sustainable and to not take over our lives.
Yeah. Wow. So is that number, the 43K, is that that's the profit, or is that
That top line revenue.
top line? So
Yeah.
I'm like, not even expenses. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I feel like that is a huge reality check. And it's so funny too. You talked about how, when we first start our businesses, money isn't that high up on the list. And that is true for me too. You got me thinking about, like, I started my business because I just like it. Like, I like
Yeah.
marketing and I like doing it. And then somewhere along the way, it's like more, more, more. And like, even now, a lot of the changes that I've made in my business is because I'm like shifting more into the things that I just like more.
Yes.
Even though now I make less than I have ever had in my business, actually, but I feel more fulfilled because I have more time to spend with my kids, which, like, right now is the most important thing to me, right? And so it's so interesting how that money number sometimes overshadows our goals. And I do think it is the marketing hype, right, of all of this. So as we go into this idea of like staying solo, what are some of the things we need to keep in mind so that we can have a sustainable business and maintain all those flexibility things that we want?
Yeah. So the very first thing is I talk about these 6 different pillars, and basically every pillar is a chapter or a couple chapters in the book. And the very first one I talk about is salary. Because while it is not about the money, we all, all things being equal, we all have businesses because we do need to make some money to, feed, clothe, survive, live in this, capitalist hellscape we're in. So one of the biggest things I see is people over investing in their business as solo business owners. We've all been there. We've all done it, buying all the things, chasing after the dream, TM, if you will. And we need to get very realistic about, like, how much money do I need from the business and what activities do I need to be doing to ensure that I'm able to pay myself first? Because if you're not able to pay yourself consistently from your business, what's going to happen? You're going to become burnt out. You're going to become resentful. You are not going to feel fulfilled by it. At a minimum, your basic needs to be being met. And I want people to be doing better than their basic needs. Stop paying scammy business coaches on the internet all your money and then getting the leftovers. I want you to reverse engineer that. And I have a calculator that goes with the book to be like, hey, this is how much money I need in my life. How much money do I actually need to be making? What are my expenses? And start to keep an eye on those numbers really strategically. And I brought in some really smart people into that chapter to talk about, like, how do you pay yourself? What should you be doing? Like, getting into the mechanics of the money that I'm not an expert on, but these smart money people, CPAs, bookkeepers, actually are.
Yeah, I love that you emphasize the money piece, because I can't tell you how many times I've been on like consult calls with someone where they come in and they want to hire my agency for services, and I'm asking them these questions like, okay, how much revenue are you making per month, or how much does it cost? Like, what's the cost of goods sold, or things like that, and they don't know the answers, and it's like, we can't market, we can't even do anything until you know those answers. Otherwise, you're just paying me to post on social media for you, and like that's I mean, for fun, sure. If you want to do that, more power to you. But like, we want to run the business here, and so I love that you start with the numbers of it all, because it's the reality that we all have to face. And I think it's one of those things too, where if you get caught up in the hype, you end up spending so much time on the busy work. I'm
Yeah.
going to call out marketing here. Okay, this is a marketing podcast. We spend so much time on busy work. Sometimes it's marketing. And then we feel like nothing's working because we actually haven't looked at the numbers to see where that all lies. So do you talk about marketing, and how do we put marketing as a line item in all of this?
I really touch on marketing in the systems part of it because it is, nobody wants, especially as a solo business owner, no one wants to, like, systems, do I really need system? And it's like, stop thinking of systems as like these things that like are going to constrain us, and the things that actually let us get what we need to get it done in a really focused way, and making really strategic decisions to say, you know what, my last 5 clients have come from referrals. I've never ever got a lead on social media. So do I need to be doing social media? Or why am I, this is what I see all the time, building an email list, which is for people that are not buying retainer services. Like, get really clear on what that marketing is, and then create a really simple system where you know what is the cadence. You're not having to reinvent the wheel. So if you are doing specific marketing activities, you have a plan. And I just call it like the minimally viable marketing plan. Like, please just start with that.
Yes, please, please, please. I love that you use a referral example, because there are so many times where people say that to me, oh, it's referrals. And they desperately want the magic pill of social media, but they're marketing to the wrong people. Like, if referrals are your people,
Mhm.
go after referrals. And yeah, you can find them on social media, but you got to go into it with that mindset. I love this. I love this. Okay. So we're staying solo. We are, being strategic with our time, but at what point do we start outsourcing? So do you talk in the book about getting support even while staying solo? What does that look like?
Yeah. So one of the pillars is support. And I feel like this is a really common place where people go wrong. They feel like solo means alone.
Yeah.
Like, nobody is a business owner. Nobody should be doing this alone. And support can take a lot of different forms. And this is, you're like, how do you have a whole chapter on support? Well, I talk about entrepreneurial loneliness because it's a well documented and very studied thing at this point, and the isolation that goes on. The fact that we all have different needs, we need different supports. And we often think of support as, I need to hire a business coach, or I need to hire a VA. Support can come in a lot of different forms. It can come in terms of upskilling, or it can come in personal support. I talk about personal support all the time with my clients, and that a lot of times is the most impactful type of support. Hey, your back hurts because you're spending a lot of time in your design. Maybe you need a massage. Oh, you're struggling with X, Y, and Z. Maybe you need therapy. Maybe you need your groceries delivered or a produce box. Like, the support we get does not have to come down to pure support in the business. It could be having a very specific tool. So looking at support from I can't do this by myself, no business owner is an island type, and being like, where do I actually need support? And sometimes that's going to be like, hey, I need some business friends because I haven't left my house and I need to talk to people who get it, because talking to my partner or my cats is not a healthy way to do this.
Yeah, get the support. I like my Walmart delivery guy. Oh man, that's my
Yeah.
support right there. Can't do it. Can't do it without him. Okay, so let's talk about this idea of, okay, yeah, we're solo, we have our support, but there's this concept that I run into all the time where people want to, and if this is you, don't feel bad, but they want to seem like they're bigger than they are, right? Like they on the website, they're like, oh, here's how we help everybody. Or like, somebody asked me the other day if my assistant was AI. They were like, oh, is Jemmy a real person? I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, she's real. She's a real person.
Hey,
People are
Jemmy.
creating AI assistants to like make themselves seem like they're bigger than they are. Why? Why do people do this? Do you know?
I feel like this ties back to kind of the beginning of like the business legitimacy thing. Um, and you were in that series I did, the Staying Solo Story series. One of the interviews I did with one of my longtime clients, she tells a story. This is Emily Gertenbach, and she tells a story about going to a networking event, and someone keeps badgering her about when she's going to hire and how bad it made her feel. And there is this idea like, if you don't have a team, employees, a brick and mortar, all these things, are you even legit? Are you even real? You're just playing business in your office or at your kitchen table or whatever. And the reality is that it's about ego, it's about vanity, it's about so many things. And I find it really interesting when, like, I will pop, my team answers emails in our, shared inbox, but so do I. I will pop in and answer emails sometimes on the customer service side or different things. And people are like so surprised that it's actually me, because we have all been conditioned in this online world to feel like these celebrity entrepreneurs running the businesses are untouchables and we should be worshiping them. And the reality is like, people at this point in time, I'm gonna call it right now. They don't give a shit if you have a huge team. They care if you have skills and experience and you do what you say you're gonna do. Because unfortunately, over the last 10 years of the online business world, like the bar is so low, it's in hell right now.
Oh, Lord.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. I do feel like, unfortunately, this is where we are in the service industry. And especially going into now. So now, not only are we competing against the low expectations that other people have set in their business, but also AI. I feel like there's this assumption that it's such a magical thing that it's like people think it's the end all be all. And then they come to us and they expect us to be able to do things, or they expect AI to be able to do things that it can't. And it's like, okay, so we're battling against two expectations here with this, which is just, it's so freaking wild. I think we're just heading into a wild time. But like you said, when you go into your inbox and you answer an email, I think that actually helps people connect with you more. And it kind of like bridges this gap right now between like there's so much information online that sometimes we just want a human being.
Yes.
It reminds me of like when you call the bank and you're like, give me the human. I don't want the automated. Give me the human. I feel like that's where we are right now.
Quick example this morning, my husband's off work. We need to get a railing installed on our front step because there's not one and it's dangerous. And it's been 6 years and we figure someone's going to fall off eventually. So basically gets in touch with two places. One person says, great, I'm in the area. I'm going to come give you a quote. The other one says, hey, can you take pictures and send a sketch?
Wait, they want you to sketch it?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, that's what he's like. Absolutely not. And I mean, the man is an artist. He can do it, but he was just like, no. So we think of that example in your business. Like part of being a service business owner is actually providing service. And I feel like in the push to have boundaries and say no, and like, I support all those things. There's an entire chapter on boundaries in the book. But we need to remember, like, we actually need to be providing a service and doing what we say we're going to do and not overpromising and not just trying to do the least amount of work for the most amount of money. Like, there needs to be some integrity in this. And our mutual friend, Michelle Mazer, and I just recorded an episode of our podcast, Duped, on AI and shitification. Because what I'm seeing is the coach to AI, consultant pipeline is real. As the coaching industry is saying, we've got an AI industry replacing it. And I use AI. I don't think it's bad. But when I see someone being like, pay for 6 weeks of coaching with my bot, what are you on? Yes. Oh, I saw it for real on the internet.
Oh man. I mean, I guess if we can think it's being done. Listen, I'm a huge fan of AI. I love using it. I talk to ChatGPT every day. Sure. I love it. And it's like a calculator, man. It's not replacing the human. Anyways. Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit because I want to get a little bit nosy about your book marketing. I loved the podcast series that you did for your book marketing. But before we get into that, I want you to give us the overall 10-foot view, 100-foot view of your book marketing headed into the launch of Staying Solo.
Oh my gosh. I'm just going to say to anyone who wants to write a book, it is a lot of work as an indie author because it is me. And like, yes, I have a team, but here's the reality. I have a very small team and we've got an agency to run. We've got BS Free Business to run. And like, I didn't know what I was doing, so I couldn't give really good instructions. So, I mean, I had lots of friends who've had books, everything, who've given me lots of guidance, but I had to get really scrappy. Like, that was I had to do a lot of swipe files. I created a whole secondary podcast for it, multiple episodes of my podcast. I've been doing all the podcast interviews. Like, this is 10,000 foot. This is a massive marketing project over and above everything else we are already doing. And I think the interesting thing is like, yes, there's the time and the energy and commitment of writing the book. And then there's the hard expenses of writing the book, which right now I'm looking at about $12,000 of like, what's gone into book marketing, copies, sponsorships, all the things. I mean, I'm sure that cost will mount over time, which with my business model, I'm already starting to see that kind of be recouped. But if you have a business model where you're selling like $2 stickers, writing a book is not going to be the way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, my year-long masterminds, I sell a couple of those expenses are recouped. And I didn't do it for necessarily this like massive influx of business. I did it because I wanted to basically put everything together in one neat package. And it's a really good entry point for people into my world.
Yeah, I love this. To me, it's like the best business card you can ever give out, right? Because if someone doesn't know who you are, I could buy the book and be like, "Oh, here's everything you need to know." And then once you're done with that, come to me and I'll give you the next step, because Maggie has a lot of options, you know? And so I really like that you did that. I'm always impressed with people who could do this, because I do not have the patience. How long did it take you to write the book?
A year. And I'm a writer, just for like, I am a writer. That is my craft. That is my thing. I had a lot of existing material to pull together, but I really went over the top with making the case and the research. Like, anyone who reads the book will be like, this is a very well researched and cited book. And if you don't like research, just skip the first 3 chapters and get into the guts. I literally have it like a how to use this book, because that section's not for everyone. But if anyone wants to argue with me, I'd be like, see page 47.
Let me just pull up my notes here and show you how it's done.
Yeah.
I love this. Oh my gosh, this book is on my read list. Once I get like some time away from these little kids, I'm going to dive into it. I already have a plan. I love this. So back to the private podcast. I love private podcasts because for me, especially this season of my life, I need something audio that I can listen while we're out walking, doing daycare drop off, all of this. How did that go and embedded into the launch of the book?
You know, that I really partway through was like, what have I done?
Oh no.
Because I was like, oh wow, I just created a whole other project on top of the book, on top of everything else.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad we did it, because number one, the Staying Solo podcast, I very, very, very rarely do interviews on that podcast. And there's so many people I wanted to talk to that were either featured in the book or kind of in my bigger world. And I really enjoyed having those conversations, and I've got so much positive feedback on it. And I'd have to look at the numbers, but I mean, right out of the gate, there was like 100 downloads right there. Boom. Like, and when I say 100, I should say 100 signups, not 100 downloads. So, you know, that's getting it in front of those people. And the nice thing about it is the conversations are completely evergreen. So, you know, over the summer, hey, I'm going to be like, hey, you missed the Staying Solo podcast, we're on hiatus. Go listen to the private podcast. Because if there's one thing I am going to do with all of this is repurpose it for all of eternity.
For here and now and forever. Amen. I love this. So I want to talk a little bit about your goals from this, because I do find that one of the hardest parts in marketing in general is once you set out to do the thing, it's after you've done it, measuring the success of especially such a large campaign like this. It took you a year to write it, so much investment to go into publishing, self-publishing. You're still on this marketing tour of it all. What are your goals? Let's give it an end date by the end of 2025. What would make this a huge success for you?
What would make this a huge success for me is I want books in hands and eyeballs reading the books, right? Like it's multi-step. Get the book in front of people, get them to read the book, and then hopefully get them into my world. And we are already seeing, you know, beyond those initial email signups around the podcast, we've had some really meaningful list growth. I'd have to actually go look at the numbers, but meaningful for us. We don't have a giant list in terms of just people signing up for the resource kit that goes with the book. I've been able to have a lot of podcast conversations. So, you know, we're broadening the net, because one of the things that I think would actually really interest people is my addressable community is not huge. Like, as much as I seem to be everywhere, you know, my list is not massive. I don't have a massive social media following. I'm just really loud. I'm actually not that loud, but I'm loud around my marketing, right? So,
yeah.
And if you actually look at the numbers, like that is how I'm consistently able to outperform what my numbers say I should be able to do in terms of conversions and just engagement with my community. So, for me, this is just a awareness and a visibility exercise at this point. And like, would I like to sell 1,000 books by the end of the year? Yes. Do I think I'm going to? I don't know. Book reporting is really slow. I don't know where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I want to go rewind a sec because you mentioned this resource kit. Is this
Mhm.
something that's like at the end of the book? They get to the end of the book and you're like, hey, if you want more, sign up?
I have it sprinkled throughout the book.
Ooh, nice. I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's such a
Yeah.
great way to encourage people to take that next step. Especially you mentioned things like calculators and like tangible things that you can implement with the book. Some of the books that stick with me, I always know that those are the things that go along with it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So we're nearing the end of our conversation today. Last question. Do you think that solo businesses mean that the business is more human?
I'm going to say yes.
Tell me
Um,
more.
well, I think, and I'm going to come at this from a couple different angles, is number one, like if you compare it to an agency, one of the big things everyone goes through when they transition from solo to an agency is convincing people that their team is as good as they are, if not better. And when you're a solopreneur, you never have to deal with that. So I feel like one of the biggest fears our clients have is like what makes you great is not going to carry through. And whether it's true in an agency or not, I do feel like you being the face of the business also humanizes it. It's just an easier thing for brains to wrap around. Not saying agencies are not human. My team is very human, not AI. But at the end of the day, there's that. I think the other thing is a solo business owner, it's a lot easier to just build things, do your marketing based on your point of view, your reputation. Like you don't have as many things to consider. And I'll give you an example. Is when I had a business partner, it was very challenging at times because not that we had differing viewpoints, but how I would express that versus how she would express it were very different. And I'm glad I had that lesson because once we had wrapped up and parted on very amicable terms, I always like to say that because business partnership breakups are always a thing on the internet. And that actually was one of the reasons I was able to sharpen my voice because I was like, oh, no one's here to hold me back. Great. I can say whatever I want.
Yes. Yeah, I do find that. So having been on both sides of this now, I feel more nimble, which is
Yeah.
both a pro and a con. Like, I don't think either side of this is like go all one way or the other, but like I can be very nimble with my
Mm-hmm.
marketing. Like I can wake up today and be like, I'm going to do this now and then just
Yes.
do it. Whereas before when I had a team, there was like a lot of things to think about before doing that. But also it's just me. So some days lately, especially where I've been sick this week, y'all, I woke up, I was like, I don't feel like working today. And I just don't work today. There's no one to report to. It's just me. So I do find that part, like having a team for me, helped me stay more motivated versus being nimble. So two sides, but I love that you said that though, about the humanity of it all. I find there's just going to be a premium on humanity because of AI and robots and everything. So I love this. Thank you so much, Maggie.
And I want to add something to that. In a world of AI, in a world of where we have all these people that are separate and we can't talk to them, you being able to show up and be human and real and like actually serve your clients, connect with your clients, have conversations with your clients, and being willing to do that is a huge differentiator. So I think for anyone who's feeling uncomfortable about AI right now is like, as a solo business owner, you have a huge advantage. And I will just say, as someone who works on the agency side with corporate clients, I am seeing my corporate clients hire more and more solo practitioners than ever before because they don't want to pay for the layers and complexity and frankly the bullshit that goes on with a lot of the agencies they've dealt with in the past.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, you heard it here first, folks. Staying solo may be a way to go for you. I love this. Okay, so everyone who's listening who's like, give me the book now, please. Maggie, tell us more about it and where they can find it.
Okay, so the book you can find at stayingsolobook.com. It is everywhere. It is Amazon, Indigo, Barnes and Nobles, bookshop.org. So if you don't want to shop on the bad place, you don't have to shop on the bad place. And it's in Kobo. Did I say that? It's all literally all the places. I've been indie authoring all over the place, being like, "Hi, can you stock my book?" Yeah, like I said, the humiliate of all this. It's been very sobering.
Yeah.
So that is the best place to find the book, is wherever books are sold. And if you want to check out the Staying Solo Stories podcast, which includes Andrea's story, it's at stayingSoloStories.com. And I live on the internet at BS Free Business and the Staying Solo podcast.
Yay, I love it. All of those links will be in the show notes, y'all. OnlineDrea.com/359. Get the book, listen to the podcast, enjoy all of it. Thank you so much, Maggie, for being on the show today.
Thanks, Andrea.
And thank you, dear listener, for tuning into another episode of the Mindful Marketing Podcast. If you want more mindful marketing goodness in your life, make sure you check out the Mindful Marketing Lab. Coming up next, we're doing our famous What's the Scoop session, where I go into all the nitty-gritty of all the marketing news and trends happening on the internet, really breaking it down so that you have what you need to know and not all the hypotheticals out there in the world. So come on in. That's going to be on June 3rd. So in the Mindful Marketing Lab, join us there. Next week, I am having a conversation with Lindsay Bestfield all about unlocking the Google algorithm, especially that cute little box at the top right now that says, hey, here's what AI says. If you want to learn about that and more, stay tuned next week. I'll see you then. Bye for now.